In this video, we are going to understand that in functional components, individual state values can also be complicated objects containing many values. And then we'll see that how it compares with the whole state object sort of thing, which by default, obviously, it can have multiple values, how that compares to that thing. The main line of thought here will be that the it is said that the state which is available in class-based components, that is merged, but uh, the state which is available in functional component, and if using its setter function we try to update it, then that value is updated, which means overwritten rather than merged. So anyways, the differences are much less than what it seems to be, and that will be more clear as we go with some examples. So what we are going to do is that let's say we start with let's start with a normal class component. Okay, so we'll start with the class component, and here let's say we initialize it with some state, and we can initialize it in, if we want to initialize it in constructor, then this dot state we can do. Otherwise, using field property also, this is a newer syntax, you can initialize directly like this also. If you don't have to do anything else in constructor, then why to create it? And let's create something like, let's say foo, let's say hello, and let's say bar is another key, and that value is let's say 99. Okay, fine. And then you can just print, let's say a, which is essentially this dot state dot foo, and in a similar manner let's print bar. And just I'm rendering for the sake of it, but you can see that, yeah, when this class component renders, then this a and b denoting foo and bar, which is hello and 99 respectively, they are printed here. Okay, and let's write the key value here also, just for simplicity, which means that this is foo and this is bar. Okay, so foo is hello and bar is 99. Okay, so we'll come back to it. Let's try to do the same thing in a functional component. So let's get back to functional component, and now let's understand what we are trying to do. So here try to understand that foo is a state. Foo is a state, actually. Bar is a state. So this state object is essentially sort of in class component there is a single state object, right? This dot state that contains all the different states which are which you want to create in a particular class component. So the first level values, so not the next level values, we'll see the some another example right now, where it can be like this rather than this hello, which is a normal primitive value. It can also be further array or nested object in that sense. But just try to understand that the first level values are essentially states. Okay, which we say that these are the various states, and this is the whole state object. Okay, now since this whole thing is not this everything is not in sort of a monolith in functional component, so essentially foo and bar are going to be separate states inside function component. We have already seen this thing, but I am just reiterating because it is somewhat important. But let's decipher that. So if we want to do a similar thing in functional component, then essentially you are doing foo, set foo, use state, and you're starting with hello, and in a similar manner you are having another state variable which is starting from 99, and it is bar and set bar. Okay, so just try to understand that here foo and bar were inside the whole global object, which was state object. Here individual states will be initialized separately, this is like foo, this is bar, and the values are correspondingly exactly same. In fact, you can simply copy and you can print it here, and in a similar manner you will see that we don't need this dot state because these are directly state variables accessible directly here. And here also you will see that foo is hello and bar is 99. Okay, now the difference is that here if we want to change this state, then there is no individual way to change this one particular thing. There is a global function which is this dot set state, and that is used to modify the whole state object. Contrast that with here individual states you can modify with its own setter function. Okay, so here let's say there is a button, and if you click let's say if you click on this button, then let's say you are going to handle click. This handle click has to be, this is a class component, right? So this has to be inside here defined somewhere. And now what you have to do is that you have to use something called this dot set state. Okay, and here let's say you are trying to change let's say you are trying to change foo hello to foo world. Okay, okay, so this is one thing. Or you could change, let's say, bar also. Let's say you can change bar to, let's say, just let's say 200. Let's get back to our class component, and we will see that yeah, initially this thing is there. Now as soon as I click, then see what is going to happen. As soon as I click, then this will run, and then the state will change, and then since the state is changed, the whole component will re-render and this will be printed again. So let's comment one of them. So see, initially this thing was there. When I click, yeah, looks like some issue is that, yeah, so essentially here it would be something like this. So since you have created a function, so you have to click, you have to call this function. Okay, this click function. So now you click, then this thing is changed. So now hello is changed to world, right? And now you might do something like this also, or if you're generally this format is used if you want to, let's say, whatever the event is captured and you want to forward it, or some dot target dot value or something you want to. Generally, if you don't want to pass any arguments, then there is no need to use this format. Just you can directly do this, and this will also work. You can see that this is hello, and if I click, then this becomes world. Okay, now in a similar manner, if you change this, then this is going to be similarly, this is like bar is 99, and if I click, then bar becomes 200. Important thing to note is that, let's say, you can understand that this whole thing is coming from a single state object. So if you don't print individually, if you simply print this dot state, then you will understand that yeah, right now this is hello, foo hello, and bar 99. When I click, then bar 200 is changing. So I'm just setting this thing. But it's not that the state becomes this thing. In fact, this thing gets merged with this thing. Which you can understand that this thing is taken, and like spread operator, later it is whatever the new state is there, that thing is provided. Okay, so you can understand it like that. At the end, you are appending and merging it with the existing state, and that's why nothing is lost, which means that if I click, then you can see that this thing is changed and this thing is as it is, which means that the new whatever thing you provided, that thing is merged with this thing. Okay, same here, same here, right? In fact, you can do both of them also, that is fine. In fact, you can see both of them are changing. In fact, you can actually create new variables also altogether. So when it means ASD, let's say ASD is true, some key value new thing you added, right? Now you'll see that yeah, initially it was hello bar 99. Now when I click, then that bar became 200 and then ASD true, which means that essentially whatever you are adding, that is merged with it. If the some of the keys are matching, then they are modified and merged with the existing things. If new keys are there, then they are added. So this is what we call that when you call this dot set state in this thing class component, then the state is merged. But try to do something in function component. Okay, first of all, you cannot create a new variable. So like here on the fly you created a new variable in the new state inside the state object actually, but here you have to create a new state variable altogether, which means that it's const ASD something we have to create altogether separately. Okay, if whatever the values which are already there, if you want to change them, then the only way is that you take a similar handler. Let's click a button and then you create this function yourself. Okay, and what is going to happen is that this function will not use something called this dot set state. Rather it will use something like set foo. You can do, let's say you are doing world, and in a similar manner you can use set bar. Both of them also you can use one at once, but I'm just showing you one by one. Okay, so let's see firstly this thing you are using. Right now you can see that this thing is hello 99, and when I click, then this becomes world. And in a similar manner, let's say you are using this time let's use 2000, and now you can see that if you click, then this 99 becomes 2000. So this thing is there, right? Now a common terminology which you'll hear at a phrase which you'll hear at multiple places is that in functional component the state values are not merged, rather they are replaced. Okay, so what do they mean by that actually? So firstly try to understand that. So this value, if this value is not a primitive value, so let's say this thing is not simple like let's see bar only. Okay, so let's see bar is not simple some number, rather it's again an object. Let's say this A5 B10 or something like this. Okay, now you do something like this, but here you use something like let's say A10 or let's say A20. Okay, now see what happens. Initially my bar is A5 B10, that is fine. Now when I click, then set bar is going to run, and then this is going to this bar variable I am setting it to A20. So when I click, then you can see that it becomes A20. So this is what they say, that this is replaced in function component, this is replaced, not merged. So here you can see that this thing is being replaced and not merged. But actually this sort of analogy you should not remember, and in fact whatever I just explained, in one sense that is like not correct. In fact that analogy of merging, there it is merging and here it is replacing, that is not correct, because in both cases we are doing actually different things. Here the concept of merging is there because we are merging things at the first level, and the first level things are not here at all. Here each and every state is a separate variable altogether, right? So this thing, what merging is happening, is at the first level of state variables, and that thing is not here at all. So how can we say that here merging is not happening? In fact, let me show you that a similar thing of replacement will happen in class components also, if the thing which you are doing is at the second level, not the first level. Let me show you. So this thing, let's get back to class component, And the similar thing what we did here, let's take a similar thing and try to do that there also. So rather than simply 99 or something, let's initialize it with some value, something like this. And here we are just going to change, let's say a to 20. Okay, so now obviously this dot state will also change, but for clarity let's write both separately. And now you'll see that, yeah, see, bar is a5 and b10. Okay, that is fine. Now if I click, then this dot set state a20. So this is completely wrong, right? So I'm not trying to set at the first level, I'm trying to set this bar thing to a20, right? So like similar here, you can understand, you're setting bar, not the whole state. So this thing is wrong. Essentially you have to do something like this. There is an object in which the bar variable has to be set to this thing. So this you are doing. Okay, so at the first level you have to have the actual first level state value, and then its value is this thing. Now let's try to do exactly the same thing. So this is in a sense exactly the same thing, right? So here set bar a20, right? Here there is no setter for individual variables of state variables. That's why the only way you can do, there is a global set state, right? So the only way you will do it is like bar, and then that bar value you are trying to set this will behave. You'll see when you click, then you can see that this is behaving exactly like functional component. Okay, so here also this thing is replaced, not merged. Okay, so when somebody gives you a blanket statement that in class components states are merged and here it is replaced, that blanket statement is wrong. And in many blogs you'll see some written something like that, but that is wrong. It's simply that both are working in completely different way. Here a global one state means global with respect to this component. For this component there is only one state object. Okay, and everything is defined here, right? If the first level variables you take, then they are merged. Here the first level variables are not defined at all. Each and every variable you declare it separately. There are ways to do that sort of thing here also, but we'll see that soon. But here whatever you are doing, that thing is the first level thing will be merged, and as soon as you go in the second level, then whatever replacement happens in functional component, exactly the same replacement happens here also. Okay, so till now it is fine. If you understand how both are different, till that time it is fine. The problem starts when whatever you are doing here, if you start trying to do something like that here. So if you follow that convention that whatever the first level state variables are here in the overall state object, if you create a separate in mentally you create models of them as a separate state variables, and then you create separate use states for them, then everything is perfect, exactly same, right? If you just have to understand it from a different perspective. Other than that, everything is same. But the problem starts when you try to do something like this in here. And let me show you how people start trying to do that. So let's say rather than doing this, okay, you do something like this: const state set state is equal to use state, and in that you try to have the whole thing something like this. You're initializing. So you understand? So rather than creating foo and bar separately, you now have a single state, and you can do that, right? Means nobody told you that in functional component this thing cannot be a complicated object. It can be, right? But the way it will be treated now will be different, because the behavior which we got here, the automatically merge behavior, that is only for class component. That is not the intended way in which it is expected that you will use that, and that's why that behavior is not here. If you use this set state, then whatever you pass in this set state, everything will be replaced completely, not merged. And that's why sometimes that statement comes if you're not aware of the nuance in which you are using it. Okay, so you can understand that rather than using a foo variable separately with hello, I am using a foo and hello key value pair, and similarly bar with this value, I am using bar with that particular value. Now you see the problem. Now I'm obviously not going to use this, I'm going to use set state. Okay, and now like somebody is doing set state here with foo world. Okay, if in a similar manner you try to do something like this, that is one way. You try to convert it to function component. Okay, and yeah, this should be state dot foo. This should be state dot bar. Now you see what happens. Right now, this foo is hello, bar is this object. Till now it works fine. When I click, then I do set state this thing, right? Here when I did, then this was merged because this was first level state and there is only one state object. But here nobody told you to do something like this. You unintentionally or intentionally, whatever, you did something like that. So React is essentially treating this whole thing as a single state, and the behavior is like everything will be overwritten, so this will not be merged, which means that if you overwrite it, then yeah, foo hello will become foo world, that is fine, but then the whole this state variable becomes only this thing. This thing is gone altogether. You can see that when you click, then you can see that foo becomes world, but bar becomes completely undefined because that key is gone. If you print it, just if you print state, then you will better see it. So you can see that initially it was this thing where foo was hello and bar was this thing, but as soon as you click, then you can see that everything is gone. Just the whole state is only foo world. That bar thing is completely gone altogether. Okay, so yeah, and in a similar manner, if you try to simulate something like this here, then exactly the same thing will happen. You are thinking that I am trying to do similar thing here, but here merging will happen. That's why foo hello will remain untouched. Just bar will be changed, and how it will be changed? Here the behavior will be exactly same. Here also it will be replaced in class component also. This whole AB will be replaced with only this A20, right? But if you try to do here, not only this bar thing, this replaces this whole thing. This foo thing is completely gone because this whole thing, whole object becomes the new this variable, and this variable you are saying that this whole thing is there, and since here everything is overwriting, and that's why this is going to happen. Okay, so you'll see that right now foo hello bar, this thing was there. As soon as you click, then foo thing is gone, and earlier this bar A5 B10 was there. Now bar is just A20, so this is replaced, this is fine, but that foo thing is completely gone because the whole thing is being replaced. Yeah, so if you remember that in fact all these things we already did in one of the earlier videos, right? But this is so important to understand that I'm reiterating it till this point of time, and now I'm going to do something which I did not discuss. See, yeah, the problem is that this foo hello is, you are changing it to foo world, but this is overwriting. But then you know the current state. In fact, if you use the functional way, then you know the current state, right? Then why not use that to merge that manually? So here actually React is automatically merging for you because that is understood here. Here it is understood that it will override, but you want to manually, you can manually basically merge it, and that you can do something like this. So let's do something like this where you're saying that yeah, whatever the current state is there, let's take that state and any variable you can use for that matter, and let's spread it, and then on top of that do something like this. Okay, if you do something like this, then you will not face that issue because you are now saying that take the whole state, and on top of that do something like this, and this, since this is final, this thing is final, and that's why this will be overwritten. Okay, so the ordering might change because of the, yeah, because object keys don't have particular ordering, but you will see the behavior. So if you click, then you will see that this hello becomes world. Okay, so the ordering is not changing. Yeah, so that is fine. If you're completely removing and adding, then it should your anyways. So you can see that right now it is completely fine. This thing is working. A5 B10, A5 B10 and world. Okay, so sorry, you have to compare this with this. Yeah, so A5 B10, A5 B10 and this hello changes to world. So this is what you want. If you want to have a behavior like this, then you have, in case of functional component, you have to manually do something like this, otherwise it will not work. And in the same manner you can do something like this also, this bar thing also you can do. Okay, and then you will see that initially it was foo hello A510 and now it is foo hello and A20. So this is completely replaced, and that is expected. That was the same. This was the same thing which is happening in class-based components also, right? So this is now behaving exactly in the way in which the class component it was working, but now you are manually merging them. In fact, let's try to do a bit of cleanup and refactoring here. So what we are trying to do is that, can we have a generic function, something like this, so that even if we, so what did we start with? We started with this thing, right? So something like this, can it happen that we call that function something like this, but actually internally that behaves something like this? Just a thought experiment, right? If you can achieve something like that, then the syntax will be almost similar. Why we are trying to do that, I'll just show you in a minute, but let's try to figure that out, which means that we want a syntax something like this, okay, but actually like this. Actually it should behave like this. So let's do something like this, that let's say const let's say this is set state, normal set state, but let's say you're saying that set or let's say not set state, not merge state. Let's say that that is how the name is, let's say. Okay, and then what happens is that you give a this new partial state, so whatever the state you are passing, that is a partial state, and that you are going to use it yourself, and you will do something like this. Let me show you. So let's say you got this partial state, and you essentially did something like this. So what is happening? If I now call this thing like this in a similar way, exactly like this, then what is going to happen? Let's see, merge state will be called with this thing. Merge state internally will get this partial state as this thing, and then after that this set state will be called, the original state will be taken, it will be spread, and on top of that whatever you pass, that will be spread. Okay, so this should work, isn't it? And I should be using function component. Yeah, so we are already using function component. Yeah, so let's see, this thing is 510 hello, and right now it should change to world. Okay, yeah, so you can see that it changed to world, and then bar is as it is. So this thing is working. Okay, and now since this thing is working, which means that whatever earlier we were trying to do, similarly, simply here, if we simply used something like this, then this will also work, right? Which means that you can see that this hello bar and here hello bar, but this bar value is now overwriting it. Okay, so now this is working perfectly. Okay, so we don't need to do this manually, just we write a function, and then automatically whatever we want to do is automatically done. Okay, so yeah, this solves the problem. Now what if we create sort of a custom hook which does all of this transparently, which means that let's do something like this. So let's say I have a I'm trying to create a hook, which is, let's say, rather than use state, let's call it use legacy state, which means that the older way, which means that not older way, which means, let's say, the way in which the class used to merge states. Let's say this behavior should be like that. That is my purpose. Okay, then can we do something like that, that we will start with something like this, but here we will use this legacy state rather than that. And again, we will create this function here only, and then we will rather return state and merge state. So you understand, we swapped the value, which means that now we can directly use set state rather than this new variable. So what is happening, you see, when whatever the initial state I am passing, okay, so that initial state will be as it is used here. Okay, so now this is generic. Okay, so you can use it anywhere you want. Whatever thing you are passing, that is passed as an initial state, and now internally it has a separate use state, and it has a normal state and set state, and this set state behavior will be like not merging, it's like overwriting. But I create my own function which does this thing, that whenever you call this function with any partial state, then it merges this state and you return this state and merge state like this. Then this small 4-5 lines actually created basically a custom hook for us, which made our life much simpler. Okay, firstly, we made our lives harder ourselves. If you use something like this, then you don't need to do all this. But anyways, we are trying to firstly complicate the issue and then trying to simplify the issue. So what we are doing is that now if you see that I don't do anything, I simply use, instead of use state, so if this thing is defined separately, so you understand that if this thing is defined separately, then that is a separate hook, obviously custom hook. But if you remove this, then you can see that our code is almost behaving like class component, right? Instead of just normal use state, I used use legacy state, and all the logic has moved inside that. Here I'm just what I'm doing is that in a similar manner, like normal variables, we normal initial state we give, and after that I got a state, I got a set state, and on that set state I simply do set state. That's it. Okay, but if I do that, then you will see that this is like this. When I click, then this is like, this is merging. This is merging rather than overwriting. Okay, so in a similar manner here also it will merge rather than overwrite. So you can see that this foo hello is not deleted, and whatever has to be updated, that is updated, overwritten in that sense. But this foo hello is not deleted, which means that it is merging, not overwriting the whole thing. Okay, so in that sense, now you have got a little trick that this you can use. In fact, see, some people do something like this, and this is fine. This is fine. So let's say this thing is getting long. Let's mean there are many such states. We are seeing something like this, right? Then rather than creating a state variable for everything, sometimes it's wise to keep the related values like this. Okay. But then if you try to keep the related values like this, and let's say they are related, but one value changes at a time, then that might create problems. And then in that case, if you create this hook, and you can simply copy paste it anywhere, because this is exactly nothing is specifically hard coded here. This is completely generic piece of code, right? So if you write this code, then even if whatever, like say 2, 3, 4 variables are related, and one of them you are changing, then also it will merge rather than overwrite. So that will be helpful in that case. But after that, just keep a few variables like grouped together, but after that, whenever a value is completely different, then you should use again a separate state variable altogether. It has a lot of advantages also. Why? Because let's say tomorrow you are going to refactor it, and this let's say foo and bar, these are completely independent things, right? Then if you try to create a new custom hook, then this and all the foo related stuff you can put it in a custom hook, right? But if foo and bar are unrelated and you keep it at one place, and then you use legacy style, this sort of thing, but later you think that no, I want to do only something with foo only, then the refactoring will become too much difficult. And that's why, if you know that they are highly sort of coupled together, okay, and then they are mostly let's say width, height, these sort of things, right? Then there are sort of things which are related together, then you can use this sort of a style and it will work perfectly fine. In fact, the styles, the states can become much more complicated than this, okay. And if that becomes the case, then there is another concept called use reducer that we have not learned till now, that we'll see later, that you might use, but that is somewhat complicated. And but the whole thing is about local states. If the thing is much more complicated than that also, which means that the things are shared between two different components, then we need to have something called global state rather than local state. And that we will learn after some time, that we can use some libraries like RxJS or something, on which we can subscribe on global state. But all these things which right now we are talking about is simply about local state. In fact, use reducer, which I just now mentioned in passing, that thing also, if we are going to do, then that thing is also going to be simply local state, okay. But that we'll see after some time. So yeah, this gives you now a fair idea that how you can do that sort of merging of states, something if too many variables you have to create, then some of them you can group together and use this trick to do a bit of complication easier, okay, for yourself, okay. So that will be all for now. I think it's fine. Let's see you in the next one.